Firstly, it's been a pleasure and honor being part of this whole event for 3 days that Magdalena has put together. Hats off to you for your persistence and the way you have pushed all of us to deliver and get this whole thing together, this act together in such a short time. Also for Bright for being the sponsor for this event and all the partners below. The team which has come together is really beautiful, very, very capable. And like Danika said, everybody is so beautifully skilled that it's amazing the kind of contributions that you all bring to the discussion. Hats off again. I can see a lot of friends who are there who have joined up. I would like to name all of them, but for some reason, as soon as I did the presentation, everybody has gone to the side and disappeared somewhere. So I don't have a list of names right now, but thank you very much, all of you, for joining up and showing your support for this event. My request to you is, as we go along, please do participate and bring your valuable experience to the discussion at the end of the presentation. Mental health and leadership is something. Mental health has become very important. We all know that. It's the buzzword now. Everybody has to deal with it, and we have to address it. One of the main reasons why that is becoming so is, generationally speaking, I recall if I was stressed or I could not handle the pressure at work, I was just told to grow up, take a break for 5 minutes, have a cup of tea, come back, do the job. Nobody really paid attention to it. But times are changing right now. And I think we all see that in the workforce around us. The millennials and the Gen Zs are coming in, and the way they approach work, I think, is changing the way we look at work ourselves. Our generation looks at work. In the crowd right now, there are people much younger than me. So the way you see it is very different than when I saw the military career that I had. So that's one of the reasons that we all have to be real about the changes that are happening. And like we discussed before, there is this whole concept of well-being washing that happens, where everybody wants to talk about well-being, mental well-being, and all other kinds of well-being, but we don't really show the intent of making those changes on the ground. That's something we have to be careful about. I mean, statistics are going to be thrown in this presentation a little bit here and there. They are from good sources. Harvard Business Review. It says that almost 70% of the managers, even when they want to address issues, mental health issues or leadership issues, they don't get support from the organization in making those changes. So that's the reality on ground. And being aware of it is the start point. One of the reasons leadership plays a very pivotal role in mental health also is because for some reason the teams are always looking at the leaders as to on how they handle stress, how they handle issues, to be inspired by them to get that into the workspace. And when leaders themselves are super stressed because of various requirements and pressures, they do not give the best example to the people under them, and that makes this whole environment very, very challenging. Okay, I just want to briefly dive into my journey that has got me to this place here. The picture that you see is 10 years old, exactly 10 years old, 2014, when I was taking over as captain of a warship in India. I was in the Navy for 26 years. And that's a very high point of anybody's career in the military, that you get to command a warship. Till then, I had done almost 24 years of service, and being in touch with people, men in very stressful situations, you tend to get a feel of what's happening. You tend to sit with them, you eat with them, you have a drink with them, and they open up and have conversations. So you are alive to their moods and their mental state. But 2014 changed many things for me. The picture on the left is me taking over. And this picture is the day I almost had a heart attack. So imagine this situation. You're in the middle of the sea, pitch dark night, middle of exercise. You've been up from 4 in the morning and you're retiring at 11 to wake up at 4 the next day. And as you sit down to crash, you get a loud banging on the door, and your engineering officer walks in and says, "Sir, I need help." What happened? And he hands me this note, this chit from a sailor of his. And for anybody who cannot read it, it says, "Commanding officer, I request you to please relieve me of my pain by shooting me at my head to die at once. It is an appeal for mercy killing. Otherwise, let me go home. I am no longer in a state to continue in service." It actually gave me a heart attack. I don't remember another moment in my career when I went cold, completely cold. Okay, and now today, when I was thinking about mental health, this moment came back, and the recognition that we sometimes don't see what is happening around us, to the people around us. So if you ask for my qualification on speaking on mental health and leadership, I don't have any clinical qualification. My qualification has been 26 years of working with men closely, and that experience is what I'm going to talk about today. Honestly speaking, while I was in the Navy and going through my career, I never really saw these things as anything to do with mental health. It was always the stress of the work, the pressure, deadlines have to be met, and we just rolled from one day to the other. It's only now in hindsight that you look and you say, oh, these actually generated mental health issues. Unfortunately, in the military, you don't have space for dealing with this, although the military does recognize this because of the kind of stress that we all encounter. Like, for example, PTSD has come from the military, but now it's applicable to everybody. Okay, so just moving on ahead, I just wanted to start the discussion with absolute honesty that we all, despite all the effort that we do, have mental health issues popping up around us at the workspace, among our friends, because of their experiences in their workspace. So it's a universal experience. And off late, with Gen Z and the millennials coming in, all these new terms have come up. Toxic positivity, when everybody's trying to be, whitewash everything in positivity, rage quitting, quiet firing, quiet quitting. I just got to know of this word called contagion, where it's a spate of resignations that happen in a company when one starts, and a domino effect when everybody resigns. So that's the thing that is the reality out there. And in terms of the statistics that you see, it's almost said that more than 50% of all of us have dealt with mental health issues because of work in the last 1 year. So that's the statistic. Unfortunately, that statistic is mostly coming from the West, but I'm sure if you extrapolate it, it must be true across the world. However, the good news is that those employers who have invested into their leadership and into mental health safety in their organizations have seen an 800% return for their investment. So that's the kind of change that is possible in case we accept this, acknowledge this. My own experience in the recent past has been when I came to Qatar and I was working with a company here. For the 2 years that I was there, I now look back and I say that every month I used to end up going in a hospital. And the day I quit, from then for next 6 months, I didn't visit the hospital at all. And I didn't even realize that's the kind of stress and mental health fatigue that I was facing in that company. So these are realities that all of us know about. So going forward in this discussion, I have a very unique request from all of you. So when we discuss mental health in this presentation, anytime you come across a situation that you have been in yourself, or you have seen others around you face, just go down to the screen and click on the raise your hand button. Okay, just as many times as it happens in the presentation. So you can see it. I won't be able to see all of you raising your hand, but we will get a very good idea that among the 25 or 27 people who are here in the group, how real is the problem that we all deal with. Okay, just before we dive into certain other matters, just wanted to highlight what the World Health Organization actually says. It says that 60% of the world population is at work at any point of time now, and all the workers have the right to a safe and healthy environment at work. Work atmosphere and culture can protect mental health, and it kind of minimizes the tension, improves retention and productivity. So that is what the world has a vision for all of us on how it should be. And the graph on the side, it took me a little effort to put all those triangles in that shape put together. But what I'm trying to highlight there is, of the 60%, it includes people in all this structure. So when you talk about leadership, it's not only about the leader who's sitting on top. What I want to highlight here is, it's only when you start into a position that you may consider yourself not a leader, but anytime after that in your life, you're always aspiring to the next position, which is going to make you a leader. So leadership is something that is not somebody else's baby. It's all of us are all our babies, because we will eventually be stepping, or we are aspiring to step into it. So when we talk about leadership and mental health, it's all of us doing for us and for everybody around us in whichever capacity: junior leader, mid-level leader, or senior leader. So let us approach this whole discussion that it all applies to us in whichever capacity it may be. Okay, so when we look at the problems of mental health, that may be easy to recognize. We all have had stress. But before we get into that, I just wanted to highlight what is a good mental health situation. So on the left, you have that graph which is there, the picture, which is illustration. If you all can strain and read it, it will be great. Otherwise, I'll send you the picture later. But just to summarize what good mental health looks like, it's on the right. Think rationally and logically, cope with life's changes and stress, accept limitations and boundaries which other people set. You can handle healthy criticism. You can work towards achieving your full potential. You're actually productive at work, not just being there at work and quite quitting. Make meaningful contributions to society, the community around you, whether it's a work community, whether it's a personal friends community. You're able to do all that. So this is what good mental health looks like. So then I was wondering whether you can reverse this and ask, when you don't have any of this, or some of it at some time, does it mean you are having bad mental health? So that's a question which we need to ponder upon. So the question in our workplace, do we have all of this? Do we encourage all of this? Do we support it? When we see this is not happening, do we step up and make sure it is happening, or that is addressed in some form? Do we actively work towards good mental health? That's a question which we have to ask and answer for ourselves. Okay, so here is a place where I'm really going to request all of you to put your hand up and let me know. This is the symptoms of mental health. Let's break it down and not say that this is happening all the time to everybody, but does it happen that sometimes you at work, you're not able to think logically, you get nervous, you get high anxiety, you get stressed in the morning when you wake up and you think about going to work and dealing with a particular situation, loss of drive in the work that you're doing, in life per se, you're functioning at work, productivity slows down, you are very touchy, on the edge, that somebody says something and you're ready to explode and get into a very defensive mode. You have problems thinking clearly. Do you see a person where he was very active or involved in meetings before and they suddenly withdraw. These are all symptoms of mental health. Can I have a hands up to see whether any one of you has faced any of this in the last 1 year? Okay, somebody is getting to see this because I can't see all the hands up. Okay, I can see a few of them. Jonathan, you too?
Yep. Yeah.
Johnny is a friend. Johnny is a very dear friend. So I'm going to, I just pulled one on him. Yeah, so the point is that we all have it around us. We just don't recognize that that is what is happening to us. We just push it under a different heading, just run through the day and hope it will pass and next day will be better. But in many, the reality that we have to accept is we ourselves go through this on a daily basis with no remedy to it. And the remedy lies with us. Okay. There are many things which people do about it. I was reading about an example from Unilever where they have something called as mental health champions. Almost 4,000 of them they have trained for them to identify other people in the organization who are having mental health issues or who show some signs of it. Okay. So there are many ways we can remedy it, but again, it's all up to us. So we see these signs which are happening in the workplace, but somehow we don't read much into it. One, like Vladimir started off by saying in the beginning of the meeting this time that Fragomen has, after COVID, instituted measures for mental health. And one of the things which is very much desirable is that people get sufficient training and awareness about recognizing this in the people around them. It's not the first time that we would be listening to people having problems which go undetected for the longest of times. Worst case scenarios is Robin Williams, people like Robin Williams, I think so. I'm not sure if I'm getting the name right. The actor, he was in depression for the longest period of time and then finally passed. So we don't recognize it. So we have to institute measures at work and raise awareness on how to recognize this and how to support it. Most managers, they say that either they don't have the knowledge or they're very uncomfortable because they've not been trained. And most employees do not feel the confidence and the psychological safety of reaching out and speaking about what they want because they don't see the competence in a leadership person to respond appropriately to it. So it's not as if it's happening to me and I have to see the response directly to me. It happens to a colleague of mine. And when the leadership responds inappropriately, it gives me the cue that it's time to shut up and just deal with what you have to deal with. So it's necessary that we build that awareness and recognize the subtle signs. Otherwise, a lot of people will remain stressed and obviously productivity dips because of that. Now, so when you look at from the dynamic of the leader and the employee, both have their challenges at work. Both are working against deadlines, pressure spots. They have presentations to make. The leader doesn't become vulnerable. The discussion of vulnerability that we've been having earlier on, the leader doesn't become vulnerable because he doesn't want to be seen as weak, because he thinks he's going to be judged. Like Sandy mentioned earlier, people are going to say, why are you trying to do this? Why are you trying to be a friendly person? Why are you letting your guard down? People will take advantage of you. There'll be many, many things which people are going to point at them and say. And we ourselves believe that it makes us lesser in case I admit my vulnerability or that I'm struggling with something. Going ahead, we'll talk about how actually speaking about your struggles is a very big strength, like Sandy had highlighted earlier on. And for the employee, you don't want to be seen as complaining. I'll just give you an example. My daughter is 22 years old. She's been working here in Qatar for a year now, and she's got a toxic environment at work. I hope, like hell, this recording is not going to be seen by her colleagues and boss, but she's having a toxic environment. I noticed myself over the last 1 year, I've actually been advising her, be gritty about what you're doing. Stick there. It's going to be difficult initially. So all the things that I recognize I shouldn't be encouraging in an organization is something I'm asking my daughter to stick through. So I don't think I've done a great job on that. I probably need to revise how to address this better with her. But the fact is that as an employee, you don't want to be seen as complaining, which is a challenge which she faces. She doesn't want to be seen as a pain point in the organization where there's always, when somebody sees you and you're only putting a hand up and saying, okay, I have a problem with this, I have a problem with that. So that is a challenge which an employee certainly faces. Last point about leaders having blind spots. I remember a time when I was in the Navy, I used to hear about admirals coming in, having a cup of tea, having a conversation with all the captains, relaxing, evening, finishing early, going for a golf game. I think in the corporate also things were much more easier earlier on. Now there's so much of visibility, so much of transparency, so much of reporting, so many meetings, so many deadlines to be met, projects to be closed. The leader has to make a choice on where he puts his energy. We all have that much attention span and battery. And it's very challenging for the leader to take time out and focus on mental health when his boss is yelling at him. So leaders have blind spots, and the challenge that they face is only for them to deal with. So if you just look at one leader trying to change something, may not be possible. So that's why when we go ahead, we'll talk about how it has to be a cultural shift. But leaders, if they're in a cocoon space, they have a huge challenge on identifying what other people are going through in terms of mental health crisis. Just raising awareness. None of this comes very naturally to us. So unless we are making ourselves and our team conscious about all these matters, they will very, very well slip under the radar for all of us. Okay, so I'm going to just switch tack a little bit. So what we were talking about till now was the kind of challenge at the workplace. And now I'm trying to see what is the way ahead. How can we think differently about it? So I am not going to dive into the typical, I have a printout here which says things that you can do right. Okay, let me see. Open communication channels, promote work-life balance, introduce mental health days, flexible work hours, provide mental health resources. So there's a very structured way of dealing with certain things, but I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to try and approach it in a slightly different way. So I'm going to refer to a book called The 4 Agreements. Okay. This book changed my life. So I have been through a divorce. I've been through bad narcissistic bosses where at 3 in the morning, I woke up one day and I told myself, time to resign. And 10 o'clock, I had resigned. So I have had my share of things and challenges. And there were periods in my life also with COVID and everything where you are very fearful about the job that you're having, how life is going to turn out. You've got 2 kids to take care of. And in that search, I came across this book, which quite significantly changed my life. If anybody is interested in a bit of spirituality, which is of a different kind, not necessarily the meditation kind, you all should try and read this book. It's called The 4 Agreements. It's written by a Mexican, I think. Okay, so what the premise of the book is that we all make agreements with the rest of the world, which we stick to, which actually complicates our life. So he says, long story short, chuck those agreements, follow these 4. So the one about the impeccable word is a very detailed one, and I'm not getting into that. Roughly speaking, It talks about how you should be truthful to yourself and to others and stick to what aligns with you. I'm not getting into that, but I'm trying to look at the other three things which are there. And before I get into this is as a human being that you're talking about. You're an employee, you're a mid-level manager, you're a senior level manager. So it's in that perspective, it's a collective perspective that I'm trying to address. So don't take anything personally. So if something is happening around you and we have a boss who's passing by and making a comment and we can't make sure whether he was taking a dig at us, don't take it personally. Let it pass. Okay. Your colleague says something about a presentation that you were supposed to make, and you think the comment is about you taking it away from the colleague. Ignore it. It's not about you. We all have our issues going on. Each one has a battle that we are fighting, and it's not about us. So don't take anything personally unless somebody comes and says, listen, you punched me in the eye. So obviously that, or you stole my lunch, that has to be taken personally. But otherwise, when we do this overthinking, try not taking it personally. The other one which I want to focus on is don't make assumptions. We attribute reasons to qualify other people's actions and words. Don't assume. The book says just ask. Asking may not always be the solution, but it. Can you hear me now?
The voice is echoing.
Mandar, I think you need to mute one of the devices you're accessing.
Yeah,
one you're using for the
right.
video, right? So one of them you need to mute.
Yep. Let me just go back. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you very well, only once.
Okay, cool. So that's what, don't make assumptions. And then the last one, always do your best, which means that if you put all the three agreements together and do your best about these, what it lets you do is get into a mental state where you're at peace, whether it's as a leader or you're as an employee. You get into a state of peace and you're not just running around in circles trying to untangle the mysteries that your brain is overthinking. So that's a suggestion that I can have in a way you approach work stress so that your mental health is taken care of. Okay, now when you extend that, I'm then going to list a few things that you can pay attention to, again, for everyone, because you're either a junior leader, soon to be junior leader, or you're a senior leader position. So wherever you stand, these are things which you can probably apply to. What only a leader has to do, I will come to that in probably the next slide. So this part talks about how kindness helps. In a survey which was done, again, HBR, it talks about the sheer fact that people deal with each other kindly in office actually reduces things by around the stress by around 67%. The knowledge that if you have a complicated situation, you talk to somebody and the other person is not going to lose his blip, 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 it actually raises the involvement of the person in office work and the contribution that they do in the office space. Okay. This is a famous acronym which has been coined by Brené Brown, where she talks about braving. Braving is about how to have a trusting relationship. And I'm connecting this to the line which is about being authentic and vulnerable. So being authentic is extremely difficult. All of it is very difficult. We had a discussion on this yesterday. Dan raised a few questions and Petra actually summarized it in one line, that being authentic itself is another presentation that we have to do by itself. It's not easy. Not many people understand what truly being authentic means. But one thing is that I've learned from experience that the day you choose to be authentic truly, you're going to lose friends. You're going to pay a price. You might have to quit your job. There is a price to pay, surely. So it's difficult. But the beauty of the journey is the moment you dive in and you come out through the other side of the storm, the world is a beautiful place because everybody really appreciates the authentic part of you. I have a friend here who's part of this discussion earlier when we started. I don't know whether she's in it or no, but we all say that she's very blunt. She's actually very authentic. She just puts it out there. We have a discussion about it sometime as to how we need to bring that kindness part into the discussion. But the fact is she's authentic. And being vulnerable is what I'm connecting to generosity. So what Brené Brown talks about is be generous to the other people, give them benefit of doubt. So it's about not taking anything personally, not making assumptions, and being generous towards the other person's actions and words. Give them the best benefit of doubt. So it keeps you in a very good mental state. So we have to take care of ourselves, right? So this is also about not just relying on the leader or a colleague to keep you in a good state. It's about being your own leader and keeping yourself in a good mental state. So here's three things that I would suggest y'all can repeat sometimes in the day when you think y'all are far too important and big in the world. I am not the center of the world. Everything is not about me. Everybody is not thinking about me. Everybody is not acting against me. No one is thinking or conspiring against me. And that's one part which you have to remind yourself, and then go out into the world with this quote in your mind: the universe is rigged in my favor. So imagine the state that you're going to be in, whichever workspace you're going into, whichever leader you're going to meet, whichever employee you're going to work with, your team member. When you go into the world with that kind of thought process that everything is rigged in your favor, you actually bring out in yourself the best version of you. So that also transforms the mental health equation between you and the people around you. You contribute to the healthy mental state. So consider this as a possibility. If not, at least think about it whenever you get a chance. Okay, so it again applies to everybody. Now I'm coming to leadership by itself. Being in Qatar has taught me, and my discussions with people from the Arab community, from the US. Recently, I was in Copenhagen talking to my friends I met at the Camino, Denmark. The cultural differences that come to your attention when you travel the world and when you work in a multicultural environment is absolutely mind-boggling. The choice of words, the expression of opinion on certain matters. In India, we just go and express our opinion about what we think about something without bothering about what the other person is going to think about. Like, for example, we can go and look at somebody and say, hey, you put on too much weight. And nobody would be thinking it's called fat shaming or body shaming or anything of that kind. We all just do it. Try and do that in Qatar and I'll be called out for that. So as a leader, we need to try and be as aware of the cultural differences that people face and the stress that the employees are facing between each other. Arab woman sitting next to over-friendly Mexican man can cause stress for the Arab woman. I'm just giving an example here. So as leaders, we need to be aware of this. We also need to try and build a culture of openness that that allows people to speak. And it is very important in this particular instance that the leader is the first one to put his hand up and say, listen, I'm human. I have these flaws. And it is not a weakness. Will the transformation happen in a day, in a month? No, I don't think so. But like Sandy had brought up in the discussion earlier, if you consistently stick at it, if you build the confidence in the team that you are not going to stray from that path, then it allows them to come up and speak what they have to. One of the biggest challenges in this matter, however, is again a discussion which Sandy raised, where the management creates the sense of we want to be open, but then they really aren't open, right? They don't want an opinion. They just want to be seen as open, so it ticks the boxes. That's one of the real big challenges that people face. And being called out may not be taken kindly by many people. Building a shame-free workplace where people feel the psychological safety of speaking up and not feeling that they're going to be judged. And that's where I relate to that book called Permission to Feel. This came out in 2019. An amazing book. It starts off with the premise that when you walk into office and you ask people, how are you? We all kind of dash through the answer. Fine. Thank you. How are you? Even the weekend was great. But we really don't stop to talk about what actually we are going through. And if you really look at it, you cannot stop a person mid while he's walking on the lobby and say, hey, listen, my day is actually going bad. I lost this didn't go right. You can't do that. But what it actually tries to aim and highlight is that we need to create a culture where it's beyond the high. There's a permission to really truly feel what you're going through and speak about it. And that should not be something that we punish or shame. So, yeah. Then the question about leading with empathy. Oh, I love Brené Brown for this one. When she talks about vulnerability, empathy, communication, she's amazing. So it's a difficult place to be for a leader, to be leading with empathy, because there's always a challenge that people are going to cross their boundaries and step close to them. And I had this difficulty even when I was in the Navy, and we are all in uniformed service. We have our rules and regulations to follow. But I saw this amazing charismatic approach, which I saw a lot of senior officers do. So there was this typical example of all of us are getting together for an evening round of drinks. We are all standing around the admiral, having a great conversation. He has a good sense of humor. He cracks a few jokes, and up pops a lieutenant who tries to be witty in that situation and says something which is actually stupid. So there's a sudden pause. The admiral actually snaps at him and cuts him down to size. And then within 2 minutes of the conversation, then picking him up, he actually includes the young lieutenant back again in the discussion and saying, hey, Roshan, I remember you had told me about this. Can you just tell everyone? And man just comes back into the discussions without any sense of having been beaten down, right? So everybody has their own mechanism on how to empathize, how to connect. We have to find ours. But the caution here is we should not misrepresent our actions as being empathetic while they're not actually being empathetic. And that's why the table on the right, which actually lets you compare on what is true empathy and what is not, misconceptions. So we have to be careful about it. And the last part is taking from the US military. And I think they've done a great job on this one, is that they have a doctrine in which they don't just nurture leadership at the top positions. They nurture leaders at every position. So even if you are a sergeant major, you're a leader. If you're junior to him, you're still a leader. So what happens is you're only thinking from the leadership perspective. You're only leading. You're leading by example. You're leading by supporting people. You're always in the forefront, and nobody can tell you that, oh, you're not taking ownership, because you're automatically a leader in taking ownership. So That's one thing which we can all try in the organizations that we are in. Again, trying to spot the sign for a leader. There are many things that we can look for: stress, chronic stress, burnout, self-doubt, detachment. We have to build our own dictionary on what is the mental health symptom that our team might have, and then try and address it. Each one is going to be a different ball game. Each one is going to be a different degree of the symptom. It's up to us and for us to build a team and a group of leaders who look out for these and support the people around them. Team-based approach is, again, bringing empathy, communication, connection, supportiveness, all of it together, where as a team, you are helping each other out. It's not just one leader who's trying to lead everybody in one direction, but creating that culture. And then this is again going back to the conversation which we had yesterday, where everybody is woven into the culture of being supportive. That way, you build trust. You gradually have a great communication happening between everyone. Difficult, you will have people who want to get out or follow their own path, or trying to cozy up to some leader who can influence their promotion. There are going to be some people who do that. But collectively, if you build a culture, I think that would support mental health in the long term. In the military, we don't even realize how they make us do it, but it is so intrinsic to all of us, the systems that are in place, that we all end up supporting each other. Again, there are people who stray from that, but more or less grown in that kind of an environment. Simple thing here: when you see it, act on it, walk the talk. Don't just keep speaking about it. See it, intervene early, because 70% of the problems will just go away moment you intervene early. Okay, even just stopping somebody and saying, hey, listen, you're overthinking, there's nothing to it, just chill. And I think it makes that person's life that much more easier. Productivity increases, retention increases, the person wants to come to work, and it'll help in a big way. So this is what we started off. I'm finishing. I've just got a couple of slides. This is what we started off with. When we talk about mental health, we had this negative view of mental health, where it's all about the stresses and the problems that we are going to deal with. But I want to end on this note, where mental health is something that we have to work on a positive footing. It's an attitude that we have to change. It's a culture that we have to build around us, and leaders at every level will play a very, very huge role in making this change. I'm hoping in the discussion later we can dive into the positive aspects of mental health, on changes which people have brought into their organizations, and speak about it like Sandy's question, the idea about marbles, which people don't know about. Only people who attended yesterday's presentation know. But ideas like that, if we can share the positive parts, we can take away, have a good takeaway into our organizations. Before I finish, I just had this parting thought. What would you do if you weren't afraid? What would you do if you weren't afraid of being judged? What would you do if you weren't afraid of losing out? How would you be? That's a question we have to ask. But I think what we should all be tomorrow at work is this. Can you hear the audio for that? No? Okay.
No.
Just let me.
Can you try now? Can you try now, please?
I have no idea.
Sorry. I think you do not, you have to just share the sound. When you are opening the share screen, on the right side.
It's okay, no problem. The point which I was trying to make is it's a video of this
We can
young
see
kid.
the expressions.
Yeah, it's the video of this kid just dancing away without a botheration in the world on what somebody is thinking about him, what somebody is going to do the next day, whether he's going to not be part of the next event. No idea. But he's just doing what he loves and enjoys doing. So my suggestion to all of you is be that at your workplace, wherever you are, for other people and for yourself. Be your own ambassador for mental health. Don't wait for somebody else to do it to you or for people around you. And with that, I have finished. Thank you. Thank you for the time. I think I may have exceeded it a little bit, but appreciate everybody who stuck around for this one.